So the other day I was browsing around WinWorld, which is a fascinating website that hosts abandonware, when I found this. The first ever version of Ubuntu's beta. Now that sort of grabbed my attention because I didn't know that they actually released a beta for this. So we're going to see what it contains, take a look back at the first ever version of Ubuntu, and more, right now on the Linux Lounge. Indeed, here we are on the desktop of Ubuntu 4.10 Warty Warthog Beta. Now, the final release of Warty Warthog was released in 2004, and from what I can find, so was the beta. Now, to my knowledge, this is the earliest version of Ubuntu that you can get your hands on, but it all seems very similar to the final release of 4.10 Warty Warthog. So I don't really have a script for this video or anything, but I thought it would just be kind of cool to take a look back and see what the Linux experience back in 2004 was like, and to see what the first publicly available, to my knowledge, release of Ubuntu was like. So let's just, take a look at the system, take a look at what programs you get and all that sort of thing. So the first thing that's kind of most obvious is that this uses GNOME 2, which I think the closest to modern Linux desktop would be Mate, as it's actually forked from GNOME 2. And I've got to say, having just used this to mess around, it is very, very similar to Mate. If we just go ahead and take a look at the About screen, you can kind of see what everything is about. You've got, your About GNOME, your news. I really like these old About pages. There's just something about them that's pretty neat. But, yeah, that's what desktop this uses. Now, of course, this was one of the first Linux distributions to really be targeted at new users, people who are less tech savvy, and I think even in its first release, it was very good for that. But like I say, this is a pretty desktop out of the box, so I can imagine being a new user out, back in 2004, install this and thinking, just wow. So let's just kind of go ahead and see what programs you get all the way, in your Ubuntu 4.10 Warty Warthog. So you get an archive manager, a calculator, character map, dictionary, text editor. In your games, wow, you get a lot of games. So let's just quickly nosy at Minesweeper, which now would probably be a good time to point out that this is actually before Ubuntu had its quite sort of, infamous ambience theme. This is back when they used the human theme, and I've got to say, maybe it's just because I like some things that are old school, but I honestly think that this theme looks really nice. Just the way the colours are, and the fact that, it's not flat design, that helps a lot. But I don't know, there's just something to be said for these old Linux themes. They're pretty great. If we keep going, of course, that's a lot of games. In your graphics, you get a sort of a PostScript viewer. I don't know, whatever that is. You get the gthumb image viewer, and you get another image viewer. So you get Eye of GNOME and gthumb. It's a little bit strange. You get the GNU image manipulation program, even back then. Also, you get kind of a neat tip of the day. Now, this actually looks very similar to what the GNU image manipulation program used to look like. I think just before this release, when they went for a slightly darker, more Photoshop-like look. But as you can see, it all looks really nice. Those icons, very much pop. So we'll just quit out of that and keep going. You get an image scanner, which for some reason a lot of distributions still come with. I'm not sure whether or not that's something that everyone will want to use, but good to have, I guess. You get Evolution Mail, which is still going, but I think most distributions tend to use Thunderbird as the default now. I'm not sure. Or I think at least Ubuntu does. You get the Firefox web browser, which looks absolutely nothing like it does now, but I've got to say, I did used to like it when web browsers looked like this. And this is Firefox 0.9.3. I think we're on something like Firefox 70 at this point. And if we keep going, you get an Internet Messenger, you get an FTP client, you get GNOME Meeting, which I actually don't know what this is, but it looks really neat. And there you go, go take a look at the About page again. Yeah, it's a more simple one than you get with GNOME. You get a terminal server client, and you get IRC, XChat IRC. You could probably still use this to connect to IRC, to be honest, and at some point maybe I'll see if I can get that to work. But I think XChat is still going, but like I think it was forked off into HexChat. And I think a lot of distributions still come with that, which whether or not there's still point in bundling like an IRC client with a Linux distribution these days, I don't know. But it's kind of a shame to see that IRC is not as popular as it used to be. In your multimedia, you get a CD player, music player, sound juicer, CD ripper, which actually having a CD ripper like pre-installed probably would have been really cool back in 2004. You get a sound record, you get a movie player, you get volume control. Let's just go ahead and quickly take a look at the music player. And I've got to say, I love this little setup thing that you get. I kind of wish like modern Linux programs would still do that. And of course, it's your rhythm box. I also love the old school artwork for like open source programs that you used to get in the about pages. But that's a really nice looking media player, and I think it still is. In your Office, you get Evolution, as I said, but also you get OpenOffice, which I think this is sort of pre-LibreOffice. Now, OpenOffice is still going, but it's kind of strange that, well, not as many distributions seem to bundle it there as they used to. But it's still a good Office suite, and I've got to say, this is a really nice looking Office suite. I mean, just look at how much everything pops. I would probably happily still use this if I could. If we keep going, you get system tools, which are bug report. That's probably very handy with this being a beta. Configuration editor. You get a floppy formatter, so now you know we're going old school. New login, root terminal, which is a handy thing to have a shortcut to. And yeah, that's pretty much all your applications. Let's see what's under computer. You've got a whole bunch of desktop preferences, so you could easily configure the system through a GUI. And you get from like within the desktop preferences, you've got assistive technology support, good inclusion, desktop backgrounds, which the beta version only has this one. And actually I kind of like it, but of course presumably they just hadn't made the final wallpapers that would be bundled with the final release of this. You get all sorts of options to configure things, which Ubuntu really was one of the first distributions to bring in a lot of new users. Like, it was very easy to use it just from a GUI. You get a program to configure Palm OS devices of all things, so now you know we're going old school. If you keep going, we get preferred applications calls, remote desktop, removable storage, screensaver, session, sound, theme, and Windows. Go on, let's see what screensavers we get. Okay, but that's actually amazing. I figure this would have probably been sort of more important back when people were still using CRTs. But I've got to say, wow, look at these old school screensavers. That's pretty cool. Okay, but I have to wonder if there's like any way to get these running on modern distributions, because just wow, look at these. A lot of them kind of remind me of the old like sort of Windows XP wallpapers, which I guess they would. Or not wallpapers, but screensavers. But yeah, that's the Ubuntu 4.10 screensavers. They're pretty cool. If we keep going, you can see an option for themes, which even back then Ubuntu was extremely configurable and it was very easy to configure. I've got to say I'm quite liking the simple theme. The Ocean Dream is quite nice too. A lot of it's like all very I would have said that's like quite Windows XP, but of course it's still very much its own thing. And if we keep going in the system configuration, there's not a lot, but you get a device manager, login screen, networking, printing, so you can like print things incredibly easily. And you get the Synaptic Package Manager. Now, this is of course nowhere near as easy to use as a sort of modern package manager, but this is like very much a start for getting new users on board, or people who are less tech savvy on board. Because if we just, let's say for instance, of course like the repositories for this are long gone, but let's say we search a program that we have locally installed, it would be as easy as clicking on it and pressing install, and you get a nice text description of what the program is. So it's not as easy as a modern package manager, but it's still pretty easy to use. And there you go, that is, well, we can't go into the about Ubuntu apparently because the website is long gone. But yeah, that was a quick look at Ubuntu 4.10 beta. Now, of course, there's no sense in really reviewing this. You're not going to be using this on any system. However, I will say, for a first release of Ubuntu, all the way back in 2004, this would have been pretty cool. And I think it's a very good start to what would become Ubuntu. So all in all, I just think that this is well, right now, to me, this is very sort of old school cool. But I'm sure back in the day, this would have just been cool. So with that said, that's a little bit of a dumb video I just thought I'd put out. I found it interesting, and I hope that you did too. I thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next Linux Lounge video.